Hey everyone, how are you doing? Good? Yeah, my name is Mike Piddock. I'm the founder at Glisser. We are now a virtual hybrid and in-room audience engagement company. But prior to that, I was kind of in your shoes. So I spent the first 12 years of my career as a B2B marketing director in financial services and telecoms before that. And I think I've still got issue 1 of B2B marketing at home somewhere. So I've kind of known about B2B marketing from day one. And I was really pleased when it came about because until then, everything we read was like campaign, an advertising week, and all those things that were totally B2C focused. So I've kind of been with them through the journey in your shoes and now flipping over to the other side. So hopefully what I can present today is something that's a kind of a balanced view as a marketer myself. And give you some ideas about how you can use virtual and indeed hybrid events to really drive both content funnel, lead funnel, and really have a real impact on your business. So let's go this way, up, here we go, there we go, and again. Okay, so one thing that I am doing today is that if you want to get my slides, and you can actually get them in real time, give the QR code a scan. You can do it through your camera now. Click through, and I'll leave that up for a little bit while I explain what I'm going to cover today. I have checked it at the back of the room. It should pick up the QR code. What we're going to cover today, in particular, I'm going to be focusing on where virtual events sit in the marketing funnel, because I think this is the important aspect. And now I have marketing people working for me. I often ask them, where does this sit in the funnel? What are we trying to achieve here? Because for me, that's fundamentally important to drive the content and the messaging and the structure and the format, and all those things come back to that key point. Which audience are we talking to? Not just the ideal customer profile, but where are they in their journey with us? And I think it's fundamental when we think about virtual events and virtual meetings to pinpoint on that. We're then going to step into work. Okay, what does that mean for content design, structure, how you market it, what you write, and so on. And then we're going to talk about optimizing that overall experience. And I'm going to give you the slide to take away, which is the 3 things you must do. So that's the one. If you want to take the screen grab of the slide, that's the thing to take away. So hopefully everyone's had time to get into the QR code now if you want to follow along on the slides. I apologize to the virtual events platforms that are being used as well, but we're kind of using our own on the side, so you can get my slide deck. You can ask me questions through there if you want. I will look at my phone and see whether any have come in at the end, but I will also do it the traditional way with the raised hands. Okay, so there we go. So let's look at the funnel itself. So this is a traditional marketing funnel. I appreciate I'm probably teaching Granny to suck eggs here. You understand this. But what I wanted to highlight was that, in particular, there are various items within this funnel. If I can click through, please, guys. I've highlighted the areas which are sort of traditional events world. So I've kind of broadly got exhibitions up top. So exhibitions on a general awareness level. So the fact that you're at an event, the big industry trade shows, being there, being seen to be there. If you're not there, you're conspicuous by your absence. In a former life, I spent $1 million per Gartner event, taking the largest stand possible, putting our brand all over the lanyards, everything you could, just about brand presence. So that exhibition place where you're just awareness of the brand, name recognition, logo recognition, and so on. Webinars have traditionally sat, and webinars were sort of the old world of virtual events, has traditionally sat in the interest stage. So as those customers are starting to define a need and a problem, and webinars have traditionally operated there, where there's kind of like an ability to convey quite detailed information across an hour to an audience at scale. That's where they've traditionally sat in the funnel. We then sort of, as we get to trade shows, and the difference between trade shows and exhibitions is kind of marginal, but the idea of a trade show or something that's very industry specific, an event where people come because they are in the market for your product or service. They are live buyers. They are maybe pre-arranged meetings. They are one-to-one networking meetings that the event has organized. That sort of thing. And here I think we would say, here, this is kind of like a trade show. So assume you guys are in the market for some marketing tech. That's why you're here. That's why you're not in the office. You have budget and you are going to spend it on something. And then down at the bottom, we've always operated customer events. So something where you bring your existing customer base together and do something with them. So you can already start to see that events as a broad concept have sat at many stages of the marketing funnel. So it's important then when we think about virtual events or we think about hybrid events, so physical events with a digital component, that we follow that funnel through and that we design different experiences depending on whether we're trying to reach people at those different stages of the funnel. Because what virtual events have done over the last couple of years is take a point and show that they can add value at each stage of the funnel. No longer are they just confined to the interest stage. You can run these things at each stage and deliver some benefit to your audience. And so what I'm going to get us doing is thinking about what that means in terms of the session design. So let's start at the top, best place to start, the awareness stage. So these are, I would guess, broad brush events where it is about brand recognition, name recognition, starting to get people interested in your company, interested in what you're saying, starting to see you as a point of reference or some company or group of people that cares about some common topic of interest. So with that in mind, at the awareness stage, if you're designing virtual events for awareness, it's absolutely fine to cover a massive range of topics because you really are just throwing things out there to try and get people's eyeballs and get them associated with you. You don't need to kind of have this consistent theme, but we have found that maybe chunking up and taking some large, interesting, kind of relevant themes really do work rather than a completely scattergun approach, and I'll show you that in a second. The idea is then that you're able to engage a very varied pool of stakeholders, and it might not be the buyer of your product. It might be somebody who's associated, a decision maker, somebody that's kind of in the wider ecosystem that you're just getting that brand recognition with. And that's the advantage of doing things at the awareness level. You can really, you've got the opportunity to speak to a very broad pool of people, and it doesn't matter that they are broad. You're not wasting kind of marketing dollars on that. The biggest and most important thing and the biggest value about using virtual at the awareness stage of the funnel is that you can spin these things up almost immediately. So when I ran physical events, what I would say a month was your lead time to start marketing an event, getting people there, depending on the size, but a month was the bare minimum you really expected. You'd often work to 2 months. With a virtual event, with a virtual meeting, a webinar, whatever you want to call it, a week is absolutely fine. So we could today be saying, actually, have we got any commentary around the situation that's happening with the Conservative Party today? Is that kind of semi-relevant to our business? Could we respond to that piece of news and get an audience there and spin it up and get it going immediately? You can do that. And with that kind of cadence, you can technically run 52 webinars per person, per sort of event planner a year on the topics that are of interest. And that's the speed that you have. So good opportunity. It's creating these in a very responsive way to the news, to changes in legislation, things that your broad audience might find kind of relevant. A great example that I think we've got one coming up soon that's around third-party cookies. So we're all looking at third-party cookies. It's a broad awareness thing. We as a business aren't necessarily in the business of third-party cookies, but we recognize that the marketing community is thinking about them and the implications for their channels and the way that they're allocating their budget. So us talking about third-party cookies with a lawyer that's an expert on third-party cookies is a good brand kind of awareness exercise for us. Sorry, just go back one. The other piece here, just to say, third-party experts, don't, as I said, use a lawyer, use other people to come in and add some credibility to topic areas that you don't necessarily understand. We're doing a lot at the moment around mental health in the workplace as kind of our brand awareness virtual events. That's really important to us. We speak a lot to event planners, and event planners are traditionally one of the top 5 most stressful jobs in the world behind 3 emergency services and the army. So when we talk to event planners about mental health, it's kind of like, hey, look, this is broadly relevant. We care about how you're feeling, and we're talking about something that isn't about us driving business, but it's about us associating our brand with something that we care about. And the final piece here is about repurposing content. So this is going to preview. This is going to be one of the big 3 takeaways because I think this is so important. It's an often overlooked factor when you're running virtual events. If you create a virtual event, and it could be a 1-hour session, it could be a half day, it could be a full day, multi-stream, whatever it might be, you're creating a really intense content creation process. You are capturing that information You're getting live video, which is great for drawing an audience, but you're also capturing recorded video. You're capturing all of the audience engagement. You're capturing any data, voting, surveys that you're able to put around that experience. That's a huge amount of information, and often you're getting it from a third party, so you're getting that expert opinion about it. That's a huge amount of content that's created in the space of an hour. Yes, you have to prepare your slides, but it's not too burdensome, and if you've got a third party, they're often doing it. But you're able to, in that intense kind of hot box period, get an amazing piece of on-demand video content. You can then run it through virtually any video platform and get a transcription of the content. You can then top and tail that, start turning it into a blog. You can turn it into an email campaign. You can take components of that video, 15-second clips, and put them on social media and start using them as an advertising campaign on LinkedIn, driving towards a survey or a clickable, downloaded, gated piece of material. The process of creating that virtual event, as small or as broad as it is, always gives you an opportunity to repurpose that content in a massive way. So actually you start looking at the cost of running a virtual event or a virtual meeting, and instead considering it just part of the content creation process for your general marketing. Suddenly it doesn't become a cost, it becomes a really effective way of getting that content together. So I pulled this presentation together just for this session, but there's no chance I'm just going to be using it for this session. This is going to be my next blog. I'm going to try and put this on Propolis, maybe put some more information around it. It's going to be used for our social media. So it's absolutely the way to do it. It just works really well in a virtual event because you've guaranteed to get it on video. It's really effective. So example that we've got, this was the work-life balance, mental health. So that was what we were on. We were also doing a lot more now around environmental, social governance. So we're recognizing that a big driver for virtual events now is no longer the pandemic. It's actually changing perceptions of travel to events, and that the generation coming through aren't making event decisions based upon whether they can or can't go, but whether they want to go, whether they feel they should be going, whether it's worth the CO2 emissions to fly out to an event or travel to an event. So we believe that fundamentally the environment and environmental social decisions are going to be the driving factors for virtual events versus physical events going forwards. So for us, it's very important that we position ourselves in that world, and that's where our branding awareness event spend is going right now. So that's just our example. As you move down the interest stage, this is where you start to become an authority. So as I said, this is starting to focus in, using your virtual events to start to focus in on actual customer requirements. And we usually find that it's pain points. Start to cover pain points, start to offer solutions to those pain points. We try to use an expert but friendly tone of voice. You often have experts within your business that you can put in front of the camera and get that content from them, and they're the voices of authority to your customers. One thing I would say is that a lot of people who are experts aren't very good presenters. So invest in some presentation training, invest in online presentation training and how you do that differently to physical presentation training. Also, if they aren't great presenters, reformat your sessions to be more Q&A driven. Most technical people are terrified when they're standing up front giving a PowerPoint, but as soon as you start firing questions at them, they go into a different part of their brain and they can just respond to those questions super easily. So reweight your content to make it less slide heavy and more Q&A heavy, and suddenly those experts start to shine. We speak about data gathering and lead scoring. So this, for me, is the fundamental benefit of doing things virtually. And actually, the whole concept of Glisser came from my desire as a marketing director, unable to fully track leads from my events in an effective way. And I said, right, I want everybody interacting with their phones and voting so that I can gather analytics and use that to lead score, and then I can track whether my events are effective. When you're online, we can measure every single touch point. We can practically track the user journey through everything they do, what they ask, what they don't do, how long they stay, whether they flick off and look at something else. So there's a huge amount of information there that allows you to lead score when people are on this platform. So you have this advantage by using virtual, in that process is really easy, and it directly flows into your marketing funnel. We always try to team up with other companies that are in this space. So if anybody who's exhibiting here is sitting watching this presentation, we'd love to team up. If we're both looking to speak to the same audience, we've got a database, you've got a database, let's put those databases together, come up with a topic that we can both work on that's relevant, in this case, to the marketing community, and we both benefit from each other's databases. It's really, really valuable to do that cross-pollination, because otherwise one of the big challenges is your data just gets stale. You're just marketing the same content to the same people, whereas third parties will bring in brand new users that you can legitimately market to. And golden rule, do not sell. Hopefully I'm not selling here. So we did this. So we've run a lot of digital events. We do a lot of hybrid events. So we actually have a partnership with ETC to run hybrid events out of ETC. So if you go to them and you're booking this venue, we're the offering that they use within these sorts of venues. So early in the pandemic, we did a lot of efforts around creating our own hybrid events to iron out all the challenges with that. And that's a real, hybrid events for event planners now is a really important topic area. Is that what we're doing? Are we going to be running in-room and virtual at the same time? That seems to be the way that the market's going, certainly for larger events. And so that's a topic area where we can bring in industry experts, clients, real people that have views on this and create something that's quite interesting to look at. Now we're going down to the sort of the people that are in active buying mode, whether they've come down to an RFP, a short list of products. They are genuinely looking for the thing that you are selling. Those individuals need to be channeled into a webinar, virtual event, hybrid event, whatever you want to be, that's far more specific to their need. So we use ICP process, customer profiles, and the biggest addition at this stage is bringing our customers on board. So at this stage, you're down to the short list. The people coming in are kicking the tires, probably looking at 2 or 3 products. The best thing we can do is bring on our best clients who endorse what we're saying. Now, we don't bring them on and say, hey, look, these guys are great, you've got to go buy them. We come on and we talk about a topic area. We talk about how do you take the data from your virtual events and plug it into your business? How do you connect it into Salesforce? Something that's adding relevance in terms of the content, but the fact that we can get the lead event planner at Ernst & Young to come in and do that with us because they then validate what we're saying, that's really, really impactful. So same thing in your businesses. At this stage, customers will drive that message. And at this stage, with all events, there's kind of been this problem that we've had for years, that we've always sort of measured events by the number of delegates you get. Been doing it for 20 years. How many people have signed up? How many people have showed up? If that's the measure of quality of your events, then that's operating 20 years ago. That's like saying, how many people came to my website? How many people clicked onto the second page? It's like, it's just so weak compared to the data we get in other marketing now. So don't measure, particularly at this stage, don't measure on the quantity of delegates. It's all about the quality, because you only need a handful of good people involved at this stage that are really kicking the tires, and suddenly you've got an event which is delivering what it needs to do. It's validating where you are, it's validating your message, and your customers are helping you there. And keep it super interactive. At this stage, if the numbers are lower, you could consider swapping from a broadcast virtual event to a web conference virtual event. So that's the difference, where the delegates, the audience's screens are on. They can be active visual and audio participants versus just receiving a broadcast feed as we're doing here, so where it's just going one directional. So it's that point that you start to swap between those things. And this is, example with us, we pick our biggest, best client and get them to endorse and say, these guys know what they're doing. Incidentally, we have an event with those guys in 2 weeks, 200,000 people simultaneously with live voting. I think it's going to be the biggest live voting event ever. It's going to be huge, the whole company. And then community. So once you get down to your actual customers, we're talking about how do we bring them on board and make them part of something that we're able to do consistently. This is huge for our NPS. We run these sessions every month. We often launch new products through these sessions with our existing customer base. It is only our existing customers. It's no prospects. So we can be totally honest, totally transparent. We're prepared that some of them might not be entirely happy, and we will be exposing them to our other customers, but we think that's a good thing because it creates an honest and transparent community. And we try to make sure our senior people are always on it. We sort of run these sessions, launching new products, launching new features, and it's really, really can have an impact at that stage. I'm rushing a bit because I've got 5 minutes, and I want to show you this slide. So this is our genuine data from our business, and I think you all guys use an SQL, SQO model, something like that. So we drive an SQO, and this is the key column here, the cost per SQO. So we're looking at 5 different marketing channels that we use. So email, outbound email to our existing database and sponsored emails. Digital advertising, so that's Google, AdWords, LinkedIn, trying a bit of Facebook, a bit of Instagram, but it's mainly LinkedIn and Google. Our outbound SDR team, so that's not just calling, that's LinkedIn and so on, so it's anyone where we're reaching out. Physical events, which we include this, and the events that we run ourselves, so anything where we've got a stand or we're presenting at. And then virtual events, so any kind of either one that we run ourselves or one that we run with a third party. We spend the least out of the 5 on virtual events. Hands up, we have an advantage. We have our own platform that we don't pay for. So, but in any case, it's still really, really low spend. It's medium in terms of the volume of SQOs that it delivers. Obviously, something like digital advertising and SDRs, you can just scale those up kind of very, very quickly. But in terms of virtual events, it's mid-table. Cost per SQO, this is the key thing. We as a business target $1,500 cost per SQO target, and we're averaging just over that, nearly $1,700. That's how we operate as a business. That's how our business model works. Virtual events are delivering at around $300 per SQO, compared to a physical event like this where we will spend around $3,000 per SQO coming out of this. So if you think about that, the return on investment, the risk level you're taking running virtual events, running a series, it's super competitive. And then we actually track it all the way through to our sales return on investment, and then see not just does this create an SQO, but do those SQOs lead to business? And it's clearly the highest performer there. So a 7x return on investment from what we do with virtual events. Using that model. So different layers of the funnel and so on. Again, if you had to pay for the platform, that might be 6x, it might be 5x, but it's going to be a positive return because the costs are so low, the broad range of things you can do is so wide, and I think that is the stat that sells this really. So last minute, 3 things you must do. As I've said, this has been all about matching the session design to the funnel stage. Don't just think we're doing a webinar, we're doing a virtual event, and randomly throw some content out there. Really think about what it's trying to do, what the audience is, and where it sits on that funnel. You have to make it interactive. Use engagement, gather the data. Engagement is a Trojan horse for data gathering. The more things you can get people to click, to do, and to interact with, and it's much easier online than it is in a room, the more data points you're getting, the more ability to lead score, and the more ability to follow up and actually put it into a true funnel. And this final piece, repurpose. Everything you do doesn't really have a cost because you are just building an asset bank marketing materials on relevant topics that speak to all of your customers at every stage of the funnel. I think that's the last slide. So if you didn't get it before, there's the code to get the deck.
Round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. Please stay. No, you're not going anywhere. You stay there, my friend. But social distancing, you have that side of the lectern. I'll have this, only because the people on screen won't see us. So any questions from in the room? I've got a few on the app that I'm going to read out in the time I've got, Mike. But if anyone's got a question, old-fashioned hand up in a second. I'll come to you just a sec, so we'll get a mic to you just so that those through the small camera can hear you. But I'm going to be greedy and just ask, I'm going to ask a question, Mike. It might be more of a statement, but just seeing Jason sitting there in the room, and if anyone saw his keynote this morning around incredible creativity around events, what it feels like is you've kind of wed the two together. There's a really nice rigor too, and Jason, if you missed it, where on earth were you? Go and find it, or maybe bother the poor man, but was incredibly creative in terms of how to make an event sing. What I think we've got here, which is a rigor to, okay, Jason's particular event had a particular purpose. What you've described really neatly is where does that event plug into something practical like the journey? And my question, I guess, is that right to say it's a test and learn of you may get the event, whatever it is, however creative it is, right? Or you might just need to test at what stage is the webinar? Does it move around a bit? Is there room for test and learn in this, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the great thing about virtual events is you can spin them up so quickly. So the ability to iterate and improve is massive. There's that constant, like, how did we do on that one? You look at audience figures, but then you look at engagement levels. You look at just the general feedback. You know, you can easily put in a scoring system, get people to vote and so on. So you've got, I don't want to go too data-driven because that's, you know, ultimately, if it's good content, people will be happy, and it doesn't matter how much interaction you have. If the content's terrible and it's just a boring person speaking at camera, it's not going to work. So you've got to try and marry, as marketing has been since day one, creativity with the data and analytics, and then that gives you the ability to iterate. it's so frustrating when we are able to gather a huge amount of data from a virtual event and the clients are too busy getting on with the next one and haven't sat back and looked at, okay, what does this say? You know, the ability just to compare, contrast, and improve, it's fundamental. Otherwise, you just don't get any better. And I think you've got to listen to those cues and yeah, improve.
Perfect. Okay. We had a question there. Microphone's there. Tell us who you are and then ask your question.
Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm from an agency, so we're always trying to flog new stuff. Do you have any examples where you've worked with like inside sales teams? Because seems like it could be really good.
Yeah, so one of our other large clients is a business called Becca. It's based in the United States, and it's exactly that. It's an inside sales and training business, and they were using us pre-pandemic. So they were actually using us, going out field salespeople, and taking out iPads and running small presentations of sort of 10, and making them really interactive and data gathering. So it was we're not just going to do a PowerPoint. We're gonna do something, and then they've based their large part of their training business model off the back of that. When things virtualized, they were able to just quickly swap over because we just added in video and it turned it into a virtual product. And now they're doing a bit of both, so they're now hybrid. So I think that there are two big benefits to sort of an inside sales approach on this. One is that data gathering. So you're actually able to sort of force those salespeople to tick off a series of data gathering questions and not leaving it just up to them to come back out of whatever meeting they've had and say, oh yeah, I got this information, plug it into Salesforce. You're forcing their hand and saying, this is all the data that we want you to get, and the system will ensure that they collect that data rather than them having to remember it. The second big benefit in inside sales is that it's about brand consistency. So as a marketer in B2B that's often works side by side with a head of sales, you know how the salespeople go and bastardize your slides really badly, and you see them and you're like, oh my God, what are you doing to my brand and all of that. With a centralized system, you're able to make sure that everything is on brand and push a single deck with pre-established data gathering questions out to 50, 100, 200 salespeople automatically through the system. They go and use it in the system and everything's pulled back. They can modify some things, but they can't change the brand and so on. So you've got a lot more control over the presentation going out and the data that you're gathering back, because you're able to centralize it within the marketing team rather than put it in the hands of salespeople that, they're doing, for them, it looks like the right thing, but it sort of screws things up when you're trying to get that consistency.
Lovely, thank you. Very good question, very good answer. I'm going to try and blend actually a couple of questions that are coming on the app, and again, it's somewhere between a question and a statement, I think. But you mentioned quite rightly that recycle, right? You take the slides, regenerate, repurpose into lots of formats. It gives you more to say. Critical in B2B because often our sales cycle's so long that you run out of stuff. Yeah. A couple of points made. Someone in the room, I think, and somebody online was around linking those events to your content program, i.e. it feels like whatever the event, virtual, hybrid, but particularly virtual because the speed of them must be a good feed for your content program. We've run out of ideas, what can we talk about? And of course the other way around, you've almost got this circle between both. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think what we do at Glister and what I've done previously is always try to adopt some key themes so that we're broadly in the ESG area now talking about the impact of virtual events. And so as long as you're within that theme, you can start to go off in lots of different directions and it ties it all together, and then your content needs to support that. Otherwise you are just going completely randomly, like we're talking about the Conservatives today and we're talking about something else next week. You can't go completely scattergun. So, and I would just look at your content themes being the messages that you want as a business generally, and physical events have tended to be kind of like a center point of those things, like a big, expensive thing in the middle. I kind of see the virtual events as still key pillars, but you can have more of them. They're not like that one big Gartner event that you're trying to drive all of your content around, and it's 90% of your budget and everything. They're kind of like mini spikes throughout the content calendar. And I think, like I said, you can kind of get them weekly, but you've got to be thinking about plugging together. You're doing it weekly, but are you reaching all of those different stages of the funnel and trying to balance out the calendar? So, and some themes will operate better for different audience types if you've got different ideal customer profiles. So they just form part of the entire narrative, really.
Perfect. Okay, one really quick question, if I may, from Stacey that's just come in. What software would you recommend for the centralising of presentations and data gathering? Anything? Yours. Glisser.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
And that's
Whoever-
Stacey
thanks,
from
Stacey.
Glisser. Good. Okay. Excellent question. And last one, Mike. Are you disappearing, or if someone's got another question, would you be happy to talk to actual humans a
I'm
little
here,
bit later?
yeah, absolutely happy to.
Perfect. Okay, everyone. Mike from Glisser. Thank you very much. Cheers, Mike.